everyone. It's Chuck back with another episode of Checkup with Dr. Chuck. And you can tell by the decorations on the wall that it's about that Halloween time of year. In fact, somebody made the suggestion, how about you do an episode of scary refrigerant or scary HVAC stories? So I've been around the industry for about 30 years. I've seen a lot of things, some of it a little frightening and scary. But I thought I'd bring on one of my colleagues who has even more time in the industry, Jamey Hale. He's seen a lot and done a lot. So welcome, Jamey. And how about you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you've worked on, what kind of refrigerants, and what kind of activities you've been involved with in the HVACR industry over the last few years. Jamey, take it away.
Thanks, Chuck. Glad to be here. And yes, I've seen a lot of scary stuff over my 40 plus years experience, like my little friend behind us. A little background about myself. I spent the first 30 years as a field technician, installing, retrofitting, servicing refrigeration equipment. I've used refrigerants like Freon 12, 502, 22. After the HFC transition, used a lot of 134A, a lot of 404A, 507A, a lot of alternatives, and also some industrial refrigerants like ammonia. For the past 18 years, I've been involved in technical services, training, field, and also phone service. I'm sure I've talked to a few of you over the years, trained a few of you over the years. At the end of the video, we'll make sure that you get the tech-to-tech phone number and the tech-to-tech email. We're here to help, so don't hesitate to give us a call anytime you have a question about a refrigerant or even a refrigerant in a system that you're having issues with. I've also done a lot of training on the R22 alternatives, like MO99, New 22B. XP40 is one of Chemours' HFO refrigerants, and I've done training also with that refrigerant. That is a refrigeration refrigerant. The other two are best in air conditioning. So that's a little background on myself, and I'll send it back to you, Chuck.
Thanks, Jamey. It's obvious you've worked with a lot of products and systems and seen a lot and worked with a lot of people in the industry. So let me kick this off and take a rather lighthearted approach. But one of the things that kind of creeps me out about this industry is all the wildlife people run across, especially people who are working on outside systems, but not always outside. And the amazing number of different creatures that can sting or bite you or do other things to you. And my advice here, if you run across these things and it's too much for you to take care of, is calling a professional, especially if it's something serious, like a poisonous snake or a bee's nest that you're not equipped to handle. Again, there's a lot of stuff hidden out there. Be aware of your surroundings and don't put your hands where your eyes can't see. I haven't come across any of these in person alive myself. The closest I came was working on a piece of ductwork with a technician in the field who was reaching inside. We thought it was clogged with a filter or some cloth or something. And after pulling at it and tugging it for a while, he pulled out a perfectly round and perfectly mummified squirrel, which when we figured out what it was, he immediately sent it flying across the yard. But on a more serious note, I'm going to put a picture up here. And Jamey, I'm going to let you explain it. But what we see here is a cylinder. It looks like it has some damage and also some damage to the actual building. So, Jamey, how about you walk us through how you came across this? You took the picture, but what was going on here? What caused it? And what are the learnings? And what can we do safely to avoid a situation that looks pretty scary just based on this picture?
Well, as you can see by that picture, the damage to the building and the cylinder was great. This fortunately happened during the night. I had a training session at this particular distributor, and I showed up that morning, and all the employees and technicians that showed up early were huddled around this cylinder trying to figure out, what really happened here. So more than likely, it was hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure occurs when a cylinder is overfilled. This can occur in a vessel of any type. Receiver would be a common vessel on a refrigeration system that is overfilled, or somebody has pumped all the refrigerant in that vessel and that vessel wasn't properly sized for the system. It happens a lot in piping. If you have two shutoffs in a piece of piping without a relief valve and it sets and that liquid refrigerant expands, it's going to go somewhere and it will rip a hole in that pipe, and you'll have a release. So we'll talk a little about how to properly recover refrigerant in a recovery vessel. I would suggest everybody going to AHRI Guideline K. They have two different guidelines. One is that shows you how much liquid refrigerant a vessel will hold, depending on the water weight of that vessel. And the other one deals with the pressures of the refrigerant for the particular cylinder. As you can remember, when 410A came on the market, they had 400-pound pressure cylinders. And the reason for that, you couldn't put 410A in an R22 cylinder because it was only rated for 250 pounds of pressure. So make sure that you're using the right pressurized cylinder for the refrigerant. Make sure that cylinder has been certified within the last 5 years. That'll all be stamped on the collar. Don't take anybody's word for it. You guys are responsible for those cylinders. So make sure that you are using the proper cylinder for the refrigerant that you're recovering. So you'll need a scale, you'll need a recovery cylinder and recovery machine, of course, hoses, your other common tools that you guys use every day. So the easiest way would be just put that empty cylinder on the scale, tear it out, put the pounds to zero. That way you'll know how much refrigerant you're recovering in that cylinder. Recover to 80%. You don't want to exceed that 80%. If the temperature of that cylinder could get above 130, only recover 60%. So the guys that are out west, southwest, Arizona area, you may already heard this, may already know this, but you really need to watch the ambient temperature around that cylinder because you don't want to have the relief go off or split it down the seam like this cylinder that we had a picture of. So, again, it's very simple procedure. Whether you're charging a system, whether you're changing a compressor out, always follow the manufacturer's guidelines. And recovery manufacturers have guidelines on proper recovery of a system. And I'll send this back to you, Chuck.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue here with the some more of hazards that are all around us when we're working in this industry, things that can be frightening or scary, but they're really part of our day-to-day work, and for the most part, we manage them. But there are hazards, hot and cold, frostbite, working with torches. There's always a risk there we need to be careful of. On rooftops, using ladders, even cranes. All things that can be pretty scary if they go wrong, but if they go right as they should and we take the proper precautions, follow proper procedures, we can handle them all very safely. So Jamey, I'm going to put it back over to you and ask you to talk about an illegal refrigerant that was really potentially scary. Fortunately, I don't think anything bad happened other than the factory that was producing this illegal refrigerant ended up blowing itself up. And you can see in the picture here the damage to the building. But Jamey, why don't you walk through the background of this particular product, where it came from, and again, what people can do to avoid scary things like this.
Yes, this happened several years ago, and it was an extremely dangerous fluid. I won't call it a refrigerant because it never had an R number. It never had a safety classification. It was never submitted to ASHRAE for either one of those. It was branded under 22A. It was sold on the internet. It was sold through a farm and fleet supply. Fortunately, it had been taken off the market. The EPA got involved. The company got fined. So it kind of put the brakes on the packaging of this, I keep calling it a refrigerant, this fluid. So luckily enough, it is now off the market. It was never legal for use in any piece of equipment. It was never on the SNAP list. We all know refrigerants have to be on the SNAP list to be accepted in a piece of equipment here in the United States. When you buy refrigerants online, it's not a good idea. First of all, you really don't know what you're purchasing. People can package refrigerants, put a refrigerant number on it. That doesn't mean it's a good refrigerant. Could have high non-condensables, could have high moisture levels. The blend couldn't be what it should be. So stay away from internet sales. Purchase refrigerants through a good source, your local air conditioning refrigeration supply house. If it has the Chemours brand on it, you know it's a good quality refrigerant. So keep all that in mind. I want everybody to be safe out there. Everybody's liable for what they put in systems. So, do your homework. Get your SDS. Make sure that refrigerant is what the box says or what the refrigerant cylinder says. So, I really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you very much, Chuck, for letting me set in on this video. And everybody, have a good Halloween.
All right. Same to you. Happy Halloween, Jamey. Happy Halloween to everyone there. Let me just leave you with 5 tips for avoiding these scary pitfalls in our HVACR industry. Training and knowledge and education is always important. And PPE, the proper gloves, the proper tools are always going to be important. And finally, something we've used in the companies I've worked for over the last 30 years is this concept known as take 2, or just a little pause right before you start a job to think through anything that could potentially come around to bite you. So whether you're starting to turn a wrench, am I creating stored energy? If that wrench slips off, is it going to hit me in the face? Is it going to hit my coworker in the face? If I pick something up, if I remove a panel, what am I exposing myself to? Just looking through all the natural consequences of the steps we're taking and doing that with a brief pause before you actually start to work has always paid off well in helping keep me and my colleagues safe. So I hope this was helpful and somewhat entertaining. Again, I'm always open to hear your suggestions for more episodes of the Refrigerant Checkup. You can reach me at my email. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And we'll be back talking to you again shortly. Thanks again.